We have a video question from Olivia. Let's see what they have to say.
Hi, my name is Olivia Prokilo, and I have a question regarding the COVID vaccine. Does the COVID vaccine affect pregnancies in the future? And are you able to get the vaccine while pregnant?
I am so
Great
glad Olivia
question.
asked that question. Oh my
Thank you,
gosh.
Olivia.
After my children got the vaccine, all they kept on saying to me was, great, there goes my fertility. And I went, no. Could you talk
You're
about that,
correct.
doctor?
You're correct. So let me start with the vaccine before considering pregnancy. All of these vaccines go through a stepwise investigation, or what we call clinical trials. And in clinical trials, there's a phase one, which is basically, is the vaccine safe and is it effective? So we go through safety first. And in safety, a lot of people receive vaccine. I think 40,000 people in the Pfizer trials and another 40,000 people in the Mrna trials received the vaccine. Some of these obviously were women, and many of these women became pregnant during the course of being monitored after receiving the vaccine in the trials. And they've been followed very closely over this period of time. None of them became ill, and their pregnancies were fine. So we do know that even in a relatively small trial of 40,000 people, there were pregnancies, even though they were not intending to study pregnant women in those trials. So that's the first thing. Secondly, the FDA and the CDC follow these cases very closely, and we have a lot of data now on pregnancy and what happens in pregnancy. There are about 95,000 women have been followed during the last year of the pandemic through various stages of pregnancy. What we do know is that 160 of those women lost their pregnancy. And the rest, a small number, about 400 of those women were sick enough to be hospitalized, and a smaller subset in the ICU. We do know that it has consequences for the pregnancy, in that the mom may be very sick, as it happens with other viruses, including influenza, that a mom who's pregnant who gets one of these viruses has a higher risk of complications. And we do know also that some of these babies ended up in neonatal intensive care units. So on the one hand, the vaccine, even though it wasn't intentionally studied in pregnant women, women did become pregnant while they were in the vaccine trials. And we do know that after the vaccine trials, women who had COVID, not vaccinated, there are risks to mom and baby. So I hope that answers Olivia's question.
It does. Thank you so much, doctor. We have about 5 minutes left, and I want to get a couple more questions in. This one just came in from Ross. And again, I've heard this one as well. Can the doctor speak to the people who claim that an mRNA vaccine will inject foreign DNA into their body? Doctor?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot myself. So I think, unfortunately, it's hard to explain stuff to people who don't understand kind of some basic genetic code. So the mRNA, the M in the mRNA stands for messenger, and that is a kind of protein that gives instructions to cells. So the idea that it's going to change your DNA in any way, it just is impossible. What the mRNA does is that it gives instructions to your cells that make protective proteins that are called antibodies, right? So it takes the instructions for the protein against the spike, which is the little part of the surface of the COVID virus that allows it to get into cells. And it just tells your body, hey, you need to make antibodies, you need to make proteins to fight against this. So it disappears from your body once it gives the signal to your cells to make those proteins. So it cannot change your DNA. It doesn't even change your RNA. It's just a little message to your immune system to say, hey, we need these antibodies. Go ahead and make some in case we ever see this virus.
Doctor, another question that I think is important coming in. Who will monitor vaccine safety long-term in terms of just like 5 or 10 years from now?
Well, actually, there's a very robust mechanism for looking at vaccine safety, and it's called the Vaccine Adverse Events Registry. Anyone can go online, you can look it up. If you've had a vaccine and you think that you've had some kind of bad effect, you can actually go and report it, and all of this is kept in a database. And what happens is, as these reports come in, as these possible adverse events are registered, they're compiled, and we go back and we look at them and see, is this really something that can be attributed to the vaccine, or is this something that is coincidental? And a great example of this, and to give people the comfort level that all of this is being monitored very carefully to see, are there any adverse events that would outweigh the benefit of the COVID vaccines as opposed to the risk of getting COVID and being sick and possibly dying. So people may have heard of the blood clots associated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine. These things became known because we are following what happens to people who are vaccinated. And so we are able to look at these and to, again, reevaluate step by step, is this now too much of a risk compared to the benefit, which is not getting COVID-19 at all. The FDA is going to be looking now at a couple of cases. It started out maybe 7 cases. Now there are 226 cases of an inflammation of the heart in young people, in adolescents who received the vaccines. And they're going to be looking at that to see, is this something that may make them change the recommendations for that age group? So I just want people to know that these things are not being unleashed on the public with nobody watching. The reason that we do know that there are side effects is because we are watching. And if things change, then the recommendations will change based on what the actual science and the data show.